Hey everybody, it's John at Ubaldi Reports, the podcast that provides fact, not fiction, on issues that are impacting America, whether globally or domestically. And I know it's Wednesday, but a lot of this fallout from the President's State of the Union address, which was last Thursday, and a lot of things he said didn't quite come out as true as the statement that he said it. One of them was inflation. The inflation report came out yesterday from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it showed that inflation went up from 3.1 in January, went up to 3.2. And as the president says, inflation...
How'd the unemployment report go, too?
What's that?
The unemployment report.
The unemployment report was better than they expected. It was like a 275,000, but you got to read into the report.
Yeah, let them know about let them know a little bit about the report itself, because it counts for a lot of things. Well,
the unemployment report comes out every month. I think it's the first Friday of the month. So when it came out in last week, it showed 277,000 jobs were created for the month of February. And people could look, well, that was a good report because it was better than expected, but you have to look in the report. And remember, in January, there was the president got a big kudos because there was well over 300,000 jobs created.
Yeah.
But in this report, as in each report all of last year, it downplayed the January numbers. It revised it down 129,000 jobs. So in each report, it's downgraded the previous report. And this one, a lot of the jobs were in industries that are heavily subsidized by the government, by healthcare, and then there were 52,000 jobs created in the government sector. Mm-hmm. Then also, a lot of the jobs are part-time, so we had more part-time jobs being created, and
so
less full-time.
we have a mutual friend. He works with you.
Correct.
And he also has a second job.
It's a part-time job.
Part-time job.
They would count that as a job.
Yeah, and it's kind of right, but kind of wrong, because this guy needs to work two jobs in order to support himself.
So, correct. And most Americans are like that. That's why when the president did his State of the Union address and he said the economy is strong, never been better, Americans aren't feeling it. When he said inflation's down, yeah, inflation's down from its structural high, but there's a core inflation number the Federal Reserve looks at, and that jumped 7%.
Okay, so what was the highest it was prior or during his administration?
The highest it was for Joe Biden was 9.1.
Okay, and now it came out as what?
Now it's down to 3.2. So it's come down, but still
high.
It's still high because when you look at the inflation report, they take out two commodities. They take out food and energy because those are the two most volatile.
But according to him, he did something good then. He took whatever number he was given and he made it lower. So, I mean, I don't want to give kudos to the guy, but technically he was right.
Okay, it's down from its structural high.
Yeah.
But Americans still, when they go to the grocery store, pay higher food costs.
Like, what was the lowest under Trump?
Trump was in the 1 point something range, 1.5.
And I benefited from that, so thank you, Donald Trump.
Okay, but for the average Americans, insurance costs have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Rent, utility. Everybody I talk to have said, has your utility costs go? Yeah, my utility cost is far higher now than it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. Food. I talk to small business owners. They're getting killed by inflation. And a lot of people have a hard time. Like, I got a friend who's that same guy I work with. He's trying to get a house.
Yeah.
He's having a difficult time. He's been approved, but trying to get the right house in an area that he wants to live in.
Well, I think with the inflation going down could be beneficial for people wanting to buy houses now.
But you got to get interest rates down. Interest rates are still up in the 8%.
They're adjusted off of the interest or of the inflation, right?
But yes and no, but it's still high. And if you're, well, like for you, if you want to, you're trying to do a gun range or in a gun manufacturing business.
I'm trying, John. We are doing it.
Okay, but in another area outside of the outskirts of Tampa.
Yeah.
You pay what, 2% interest rate on your home? Around there?
2.25.
Okay.
Yes, so go on.
Okay, but 2.25, it's not conducive for you to sell this house.
Nope.
To get another house and pay 7 or 8%. Or like when you bought your truck in 2020.
0%.
You're not going to find that today. So a lot of people are struggling to try. Like for me, I'm stretching my truck out. I've got it. Actually, this year it's over 20 years old.
And also, you want to know something? That 0% interest and the 2.25 completely backs it. I did not try to plan that. They just came up to me and be like, "Here you go," and I'm like, "Yes, I will."
Okay, but you're benefiting from that. So when President says all this stuff, then the one thing that he got beat up on is that he had to retract the statement when he called the Laken Riley, the girl who was killed by the illegal immigrant. When he said the illegal immigrant, and then when he was on an
Didn't he get her name wrong too?
What's that?
Didn't he get her name wrong?
Well, he got her name. He called Laken.
Okay.
But he got her name wrong. But then he walked it back on an interview. I think
he was past his bedtime. Give him a break.
CBS, where he said, "Well, I made a mistake. It should have been undocumented immigrant." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this girl got killed, and you're apologizing to the killer.
I think even what's his name, Homeland Security guy. What's his name?
Alejandro Mayorkas.
Yeah, Mayorkas is like, yeah, we're not even going to say undocumented immigrant anymore. He kind of changed it to something else.
It's not undocumented. Non-citizen or something like that.
And he kept referring to Trump as his predecessor. Now, what do you think that is? Because I have my own idea.
I think that's just a dig. He doesn't want to use his name, so he just keeps saying my former predecessor. He used that about 11 to 12 times during the speech. Mm-hmm. He keeps blaming things for Trump. Well, it's like he blamed the economy. We inherited an economy that was on the brink. That's false. We inherited all these problems. That's false. And the one thing that
could he have not meant Trump and meant somebody else? He said his predecessor, which would mean those before him, and there were a lot of people before him. So Obama's a little bit in this debacle as well of the immigration and.
But here's the point on the whole speech on the State of the Union. The State of the Union address is the State of the Union. He turned this in right away when
it was a campaign speech.
When we were, it was like he was giving a speech to a rally, or he was giving a speech to the DNC. Mm-hmm. This isn't just coming from me. Even Mark Penn, who was a pollster for Bill and Hillary Clinton, said the same thing. This was a speech to his base.
Yeah,
he got angry, and they said, "Look how feisty he is." But did this actually showcase anything except blame his predecessor? Or blame Donald Trump for all the problems, and then take credit for things like he said he took credit for 15 million new jobs.
Yeah,
that's false, because most of those jobs were jobs lost during the pandemic that are now coming back.
Yeah,
and if you're trying to, as a president, you're trying to build goodwill. Like Bill Clinton would have never given a speech like that when he was president, because you're trying to get the other side to work with you.
Yeah,
he worked with Newt Gingrich on a host of many issues like welfare reform and other issues.
He just divided us more.
So he came in, and right away he jumped on when President Roosevelt went to Congress in January of 1942. We just came out of the throes of Pearl Harbor, and he said democracy's being threatened. Joe Biden said the same thing, but he blamed Republicans, and he blamed Trump as a threat to democracy. And one of the things that I want to mention is be careful, and people may disagree. I go, be careful of blaming the other side for democracy, because there was a federal judge in Louisiana a guy named Terry Dogdy, who wrote a 155-page brief, which I read, and dictated how much Joe Biden censored every American in this country. He worked with the tech companies and forced the tech companies to go even further than they wanted to, worked with Amazon to suppress books, documents, anything that someone wrote that was critical of what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And when you use the Justice Department, the intelligence, we found out during recently that in 2016, the Obama intelligence agencies work with foreign intelligence agents. They call them the Five Eyes. It's the United States, Canada, New Zealand, England, and Australia. So he worked with those countries to suppress names that John Brennan, who was the CIA director, dictated him to do. So you got to ask yourself, who's really the threat to democracy? Is it Trump or is it the Democrats?
Yeah.
So, but you basically called every Republican a fascist. That you're more akin to.
We called half the country a fascist.
Yeah, but you're calling most people who voted for Donald Trump or support Donald Trump that you are akin to Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And then when he said Republicans, you got to accept the elections not when you win, but when you lose. Well, it's kind of strange. Every Democrat rejected the 2016 election, sent the country into almost 3 to 4 years of a Russian collusion narrative, which was false, which was paid for by the Clinton campaign to work with a foreign operative to influence the election. And Obama and Joe Biden were briefed by John Brennan that this is what Hillary was doing.
Yeah.
So who's the real threat to democracy?
So kind of going back to why Biden was calling Trump his predecessor, I think right when Palin was kind of running her campaign along with McCain. And her daughter was
Bristol.
She was having, I wouldn't say necessary problems, but she was like a topic of the family. So what Palin did is either trademarked or copyrighted her name. I think it was more of a trademark because you can't say anything disparaging when it comes to a trademark. Now, knowing Donald Trump, we know that he has got to have definitely he's a brand. Trump is a brand.
Correct.
Prior to him even becoming president. So maybe it kind of falls into that loophole where he can't say negative things about Trump because if Trump can prove him wrong, he can sue him for whatever it is he's saying.
I mean, because libel and defamation of character, I looked it up. It has to be so egregious that you can lose a job or financial gain or other things. That's why the bar is so high on defamation of. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer when it comes to
But also, you don't think for a second that Trump is going to be mentioning Biden's name every turn when it comes to him repairing or just making better what it is now?
I think what Trump is doing is, if it was me and I was advising Donald Trump, which I'm not, I would say.
But you are available.
I'm available, but I would tell him stop with the name calling.
Yeah.
And just check, because right now
I haven't heard much of that lately, though.
But see, right now, when 2020 was happening, Donald Trump was the incumbent, and Biden was challenging him.
Yeah.
But now in 2024, Biden has a record. You can see his economy. People think 67% think the country's on the wrong track.
And there's a comparison between the two.
Yeah, you have a comparison. Then people,
even with COVID, Trump would probably still come up on top. You think?
Yeah, because people are looking at the record of Joe Biden. And one of the problems Joe Biden is having, and these are from liberal publications, is he's losing support among core groups that traditionally always voted Democratic. Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, African Americans, Jewish Americans. They're losing the Jewish vote because of the anti-Semitism ingrained in the Democratic Party.
Okay.
You're losing African Americans because they're looking at, only time we hear from you is every 4 years, and you paint the other side as racist, but what has your policies done? If you look at Cincinnati, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, all run by Democrats, and every city but Los Angeles and New York have had Republican mayors since almost for the last 60, 70, 80 years. Boston, last time they had a Republican mayor was 1930. We're almost going on 100 years. So you can see distinctions are happening. And I just think Biden is having problems with these core groups. And now the Republicans may not get 50% of the African American vote, but if they get 20 to 25%, that's the most they've had going all the way back almost to Eisenhower. So, and people are feeling the pain. Everybody remembers Donald Trump. Okay, we don't like his tweets, we don't like his rhetoric, but we had money in our pockets. Gas wasn't expensive. There
was a control of the border situation.
The border, they say that's the other thing. They blame the predecessor for the border, but on the last year of Donald Trump's administration, 420,000.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the next year it was 1.7 million. Then it was 2 point something million. Then we're almost up to 2.7 million for 2023.
What's his reasoning to saying that and kind of going into let's say Murdahl, B. Murdahl, okay? He says our country is being overrun with illegals. What is the reasoning? They're saying that the previous administration is responsible for the immigration problem.
I think it's to deflect the onus off them.
I mean, but they had to have some kind of...
No, but if you look at it, the media doesn't challenge them. How many times Karine Jean-Pierre has gotten on a press conference and blamed the previous administration? We inherited a broken system. How many other media affiliates beyond Fox, beyond the Washington New York Post or the Washington Examiner have pushed back on that? Mm-hmm. So that's why, and I think the reason they do it is because they're trying to, two things are going to happen. They're trying to flip Texas. If they can bring enough these illegals over, then eventually there will be an amnesty.
I don't think that's the case. I really don't think they know which way these illegals are going to vote.
But here's
again, the illegals can't vote. So Texas is probably going to put a law in there somewhere saying that you have to show your ID of some sort. They did it in Georgia.
But here's another point. And this is a story that came out last week. If enough illegals come over here, when it comes time to the census, the Senate tried to pass a bill that you're not going to be counting illegals in your census. And the reason why that's important, because every 10 years we do a census, the next one's going to be in 2030. So when you do the census, if you count illegals, and if illegals are, let's say, in California or Illinois or New York, that means they gain more electoral votes. That means they get more congressional seats. Mm-hmm. And if these states are controlled by, which they are, by Democrats, Democrats can reapportionment the seats to fit their
so they can get more seats in Congress.
Yeah, and then the other thing is they've always tried to flip Texas, because if you look at the Electoral College, even right now, it favors the Democrats, because you got Washington, Oregon. The big state is California with 53 electoral votes because they lost one. Then you go to Illinois, which is about, I think, 23 or 24. New York is about 29 electoral votes. So the Democrats go in with the big states. Now, the Republicans have to win Texas, have to win Florida, and then they have to keep and maintain Ohio. If they lose any one of those states, there's no way they can get the presidency. And that's why the Democrats were pushing to turn D.C. into a state, 2 senators. Do the same thing with Puerto Rico. There's 4 senators.
Yeah.
So then they would have the majority. Then they can do what they always wanted to do, end the filibuster, end the Electoral College, and then.
I thought they already ended the filibuster.
No, they're trying to do it, and then they would pack the Supreme Court, and this would give advantage to Democrats. Mm-hmm. So this is their ultimate guise, but I think it's backfiring, because I was reading an article today, and I think it was USA Today, I believe, and they were talking about, but the public is feeling this. That's why I think the article was titled, "Why are the Teamsters, the rank and file, starting to break for Donald Trump?" Because the Teamster leadership, the union leadership, is voting for Joe Biden. They want open borders. They want cheap labor, and they want trade deals to ship American jobs overseas, because it enriches this elite.
So MJ on Twitter, on TikTok said more people in D.C. than North Dakota.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's more people in D.C. than South Dakota. I mean, it still doesn't mean anything. It's still just a district. You would have to make that you would have to make it a state.
But see, the thing is, I think I know where she's going with that. There are more people, let's say,
I think it might be a he. I don't know.
Well, he or she, but okay, there are more people. There are more people in D.C. There are more people in California or New York and Illinois than there are in North Dakota or South Dakota. But the reason for the Electoral College is just the same thing. If you go back to the early stages as they were debating the Constitution, they only started with the House of Representatives, the People's House. But the smaller states weren't going to agree to that, because they were like, wait a minute, if you do it by population, the big states at the time were Virginia and New York. And if you look at the presidency, -2, John Quincy Adams, who was the second president, and John Quincy Adams, his son, who was I think the 10th president, all the first 7 or 8 presidents came from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the smaller states were afraid of. So right now, if you just did it by popular vote, which a lot of people want, where do you think people are going to campaign who are running for president? They're going to run where the population center is, and who's going to care about South and North Dakota or Kansas or any of the other states?
So MJ comes back and says, so why does DC have no representation at all?
I think what they wanted, they didn't want where
you need a neutral territory.
They wanted someplace was neutral, so they didn't have allegiance to one side or the other. The way to fix it, and this is an idea from Jonathan Turley, the constitutional scholar from George Washington, if you want to give these people a voice in the presidential election, split up D.C. One side of the population goes to Maryland, the other side of the population goes to Virginia, and the only thing you have is just government office space, but no one's living there. You either have to choose Virginia or Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And you can split it. This side you go over to Maryland, this side you go over to Virginia, maybe give them an extra congressional seat if it meets the criteria, and you go from there.
Yeah. So what else have we got?
So you've got that. Then you've got, he was trying to shame the Republicans when it came to the not supporting the Ukraine so far, how they're trying to stonewall that because President Biden wanted all three, the aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, and the border all in one bill. And the Republicans said, no, if you're going to do this, one, we got to secure our own border. And two, what is our strategy in Ukraine? Now, I've always supported arming the Ukrainians.
I don't.
Just not the way Joe Biden has done it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if we're going to arm them and we're going to support them in the conflict, give them what they need now. Because remember how Joe Biden started this. One, after the debacle from Afghanistan, that's when Putin, with weeks later, was sending troops and massing troops on the border.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got rid of the Keystone XL. Then we allowed Nord Stream 2 to go through. Then Joe Biden said Putin can do a limited incursion into Ukraine, and then we'll have to evaluate that. And he gave the perception that he wasn't going to do anything. And then when he did start to arm the Ukrainians, he was always telling Putin, I won't do this. But he said, first of all, he said, we're not going to give them jets. Now we are. We're not going to give them tanks. Now we are. So if you're going to be in, be all in.
So what does happen if there's a different administration coming in next year?
Well,
and Ukraine and Russia are still going on. Would he come in and be like, hey, knock it off? And they're going to be like, okay, we're backing out. What do you think will happen with that?
There's speculation. I don't know how
I mean, this is kind of like your forte because you're into foreign policy.
Correct. Right now, I think Trump will, because he's going to have to pick, and we're not sure who he's going to pick for, what do you call it, for Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor.
I don't even know who his VP is going to be.
Yeah. I think what he's going to do is going to reevaluate what's going on, but I think he's going to do a better job, and he's going to exude strength. Now, remember, unlike Joe Biden, Donald Trump was the first president since Ronald Reagan to kill Russians. And what I mean by that, in 2018, the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group, started to attack U.S. forces. So the Secretary of Defense, then James Mattis, called his Russian counterpart saying, are you attacking this base? And he said, no, we're not. Okay, roger that. Mattis gets on his phone, called to CENTCOM, use everything you got in the kitchen sink. So they used B-52s, Raptors, they used the Apaches, they used drones, they used everything, and they killed almost up to 500 Russian soldiers.
Yeah.
And the next time, Russia didn't say anything, and Russia backed down because they would have to admit that they got Russian forces in that area. So this way, I think Putin knows that Donald Trump is unpredictable. He's saying things now, and I think he's warning the Europeans, this free ride is over. Because right now there was an article in a national defense journal that said Germany is the largest largest economic power in Europe.
Okay.
But their military is non-deployable. Okay. They don't have spare parts.
For a reason.
Well, no,
I mean, there's a good reason why their military is not that powerful.
I got it, Joe. But if we get in a conflict with Russia, all we can use Germany for is to transport our equipment and soldiers in their bases and off to where we need to go.
Yeah.
But Germany was the one that signed a lucrative energy contract with Russia. Now, when Trump was president, he said, guys, I don't understand something here. You want me to protect you from Russia, but yet alone you signed billions of dollars of energy deals, and that was Nord Stream 2, which Donald Trump put a sanctions on, and Biden lifted it. So you're giving money to Russia, who's going to use that money to build up its military to eventually attack you. But you want us to protect you from Russia when you're unwilling to fix your defense. Like Germany is non-deployment. I mean, they can't move troops. Yeah. They don't have the spare parts. Their troops are aging. Their equipment is old. But they want America to do the dirty work that they're unwilling to do themselves. And that's kind of what Trump is saying. And Trump wasn't the only president that said this. John Kennedy said that in a speech in December of 1962 and in January 1963. He told the Europeans, you guys got to do more for your own defense, not just us.
Yeah.
And we got other commitments. We got things going on in China. We've got stuff going on in...
We're the world police.
Yeah, but we also have things going on in Africa. And right now, which we talked earlier before we got on this program, we got problems in Haiti. Are there going to be an influx of Haitian refugees like we saw during Bill Clinton's administration?
I think Haiti's a walk in a park. Especially you get a couple of battalions down there.
But you got
nice little sweep. Haiti.
But you remember
solved.
But remember, by sending troops, it's pulling your forces. It's degrading your stockpile. Our stockpile is at its lowest level. This is our ammunition stockpile than it ever has been.
We were managing Haiti with a company and maybe like a few other attachments.
But
we had the snipers with us and stuff like that.
Well, you were in Haiti at one time?
Yeah, we were in Haiti. We were down there for about a 3 to 4 month stint. We took over for the Army, basically, and we just did patrols around Port-au-Prince.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, get your camis taken care of for like $1. You know, get your boots polished, stuff like that. The chow hall was amazing. You know,
but this time is different when 80% of Port-au-Prince is controlled by these armed gangs.
Yeah, because there's no military forces. If the U.S. kind of just stepped in there and we just took over,
we've been there before.
Yeah, and we just come in again, they're gonna back off and they're gonna be like, "Holy crap!"
But see, you got to remember when we are tied up here. I mean, we're not going to need massive amounts of troops, but if we're tied up here, you got to look at other areas. But see, everybody else is looking at America as weak.
Yeah. They
don't see Joe Biden as a strong president, no matter what he says. The Chinese, the Russians, chewed American out and lectured America back in early stages of Biden's administration.
Yeah.
And his Secretary of State just sat there and took it. It's the same lecture Barack Obama received from Vladimir. He just sat there.
And now we're going to have a 60% tariff if Trump comes back in.
I mean, do you really think Donald Trump or anybody else would have sat there when we get lectures? Like, screw that. But this is what we're facing. And
but maybe just because Republicans have balls?
But there's other presidents that stood up.
No,
not recent.
Obama kind of kowtowed.
No, I mean, I look at it this way. Even George W. Bush was president when Putin went into Georgia.
Okay.
Obama was president when Russia went into Crimea and Syria.
Well, okay.
And now we've got Russia going into Ukraine. They didn't do anything under Trump.
Yeah. But also, maybe because there was something there that wasn't worth it to America, where Ukraine has always been on the top of mind, especially since the whole Biden, his son doing stuff like that, and it almost seems like it's turning into like a big money laundering scheme, where like all the higher ups are getting a couple, nice houses and stuff like that. A lot of the politicians will stop by there, check it out. You're a politician. Let's go check out a war-torn country.
Yeah, but here's the point. When Obama said to Putin, "This will not stand," when Russia annexed the Crimea, it stood. It showed weakness. And then when Obama, Secretary of State, John Kerry, when they were talking about utilizing military force because of Syria using chemical weapons, he just threw out a comment, well, I guess we'll just let Russia do it. And the Russians jumped at it. They showed weakness after weakness after weakness. I mean, Joe Biden was supposed to be the president that was supposed to be the best person regarding foreign policy, going all the way back to Truman or Roosevelt. And look where we are right now. And Donald Trump was supposed to be the one that was getting us into war. Well, where are we at now? We got a proxy war that's not ending in Ukraine.
3 proxy
We got
wars.
another proxy war going on in the Middle East, which Americans involved with the Houthis around Yemen. We got problems in Africa, which people aren't focusing on, but there are major problems in Africa. We got We got problems in South America, not in the Caribbean with Haiti. We've got Venezuela sending their criminals to the United States because the FBI and our national intelligence leadership was on Capitol Hill a couple days ago, and they mentioned their big fear is terror groups coming across that U.S. southern border, and we could get a replication of October 7th here in America.
October 7th?
This is when the Hamas went into
October
Israel.
7th, yeah.
Yeah, so we get about 9 million illegals cross.
I hope somebody steps into this country trying to take it over, please. That's my dream.
But the thing is, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And when it does, we're going to be like, well, what happened? And we allowed all these people come in. And Biden so far is not doing anything. He wants Congress to do anything. He says, I don't have the power. He's like, you lifted every executive order on immigration that Donald Trump did. You caused this problem. And then everybody focuses on the Senate bill. But if you read H.R. 2 that passed the House, they would have punished any city or state that failed to work with ICE. I talked to an ICE agent this week, a couple of them. They all said that. We wanted to arrest these people, but were denied the cooperation by local and state officials. So that girl, Laken Riley, would have been alive because the New York City Police Department had this individual. Yeah. And they just let him go.
So, John, how can they get a hold of us?
You can get a hold of us by going to ubaldireports@gmail.com, ubaldireports@gmail.com, or you can check us out by going to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and let us know what you think. We're going to try to do this every day. Slowly, we're going to be getting into, I'll be working with Joe when he does his gun range at All American Gunslingers. I'm going to try to do a lot more videos, and we want to do this every day, so keep following us, keep supporting us, and let us know what you think. But before I close, turn the time over to Big Bad Joe.
All American Gunslingers, that's all things American Gunslingers. You can get us at allamericangunslingers@gmail.com. It's going to change because we're going to be taking control of our website in the next few days. So pretty soon we'll have a website where everybody can go to and check it out. And you can get us on all social media. That's All American Gunslingers, and whatever you want to look it up, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We also have a page. Go on the page, like the page. If you like the page, throw a little comment on something and just say, hey, heard you on Ubaldi Reports. We would like to hear that. I know John would love that.
Yep.
And, just keep listening to Ubaldi Reports.
And keep following Ubaldi Reports. We'll be doing this every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Till next Wednesday, keep following.